It's been an absolutely incredible evening of chess. So here in the UK, I've been following along with the live stream, the St. Louis stream, and Alireza Firouzja is just smashing records. He has annihilated the field in this Blitz portion of the tournament, no more so than in this day 2. Now there's still a game to go. I'll cover some more in the morning, but it's getting late here in the UK. I'm just going to cover off one of the games he played earlier on this evening. So this is his game against Hikaru Nakamura, a player who was hot on his heels. So this was a big game. Let's see what happened. Alireza had black. And here he went for pawn to d5 after knight f3 from Hikaru. So he takes the centre and he plays very classically in this game, very responsibly. Hikaru goes for his kind of b3 stuff here, as we'll see. But Alireza just takes the centre of the board, c5, very principled, and he starts developing his pieces now and equalises really very fast. Excellent preparation from Alireza. So knight c6, pawn takes on d5, recaptures, and now bishop b5 from Hikaru, so developing, preparing to castle the king, also putting some pressure here, but Alireza continues developing. Now both players castled, and here Hikaru goes for pawn to d4. He doesn't get too quirky with the setup in this game, so he does stake a claim in the centre, and this position's pretty level after takes, knight recaptures. Now, black has the isolated queen's pawn here, we note, so that could be a long-term weakness, but in compensation, your pieces develop nice and freely now, and here Alireza already shows his class and understanding of the position. He plays a fantastic move, so he just drops this bishop back here with bishop to c7. Now, it looks like you're just losing a pawn, right? So say you take with the knight, for example, pawn recaptures, bishop takes. Well, here's the trick, queen to d6. You threaten mate and the bishop here, so you're actually picking up a whole piece. And if you do it in the other order, say you take with the bishop, pawn takes, knight takes, queen d6. Well, now you might think that you've got this blocking move, but then there's knight to g4. This is the problem. And again, just none of the tactics are working for white. You know, if you take, well, then we take back with the bishop, we hit the queen, we're still threatening mate. There's really nothing you can actually try here. If you go f4, we're taking on e3. None of it works, essentially. So you can't take this piece on c6. Instead, in this position, after bishop c7, Hikaru just continues developing his pieces. And now Alireza chops here, the bishop recaptures, and queen d6 is played, threatening that checkmate. And this is where it gets a bit ugly for white. So g3 is basically forced to blunt that queen and bishop. But now you've developed these squares around your king which are weak. And the light squared strategy which Alireza adopts here is just beautiful. So bishop a5 is played. Another fantastic move, deep understanding of the position. So the bishop's biting on granite here, and Alireza actually wants to voluntarily give the bishop pair so that he then gains more control of these light squares, which the knight is controlling. So a3 was played, preparing to blunt the bishop. Now bishop h3 hits the rook. It slides to e1, and Alireza just chops. Queen recaptures, and he sinks this knight on e4. So there's not much in the position, it's still fairly level, but Alireza's the one with the initiative here, playing on those light squares. So the queen drops into e2 here, Alireza hits the open file, and now Naka just tucks back his bishop. He adds some pressure here, also covers the c2 square in some lines. That bishop was a bit out on a limb on b5, and now we had bishop to f5. Alireza just tucks that bishop back. He thinks, okay, its job is done here. It hit the rook, and he's setting up some tactical stuff, as we'll see as well. So this one now x-rays its counterpart, and here Naka would love to challenge the c-file, but say you go rook a to c1 immediately, well then this pawn could be dropping. Now actually when you run this with the engine, this is playable because the rook can slide back to a1, queen moves, you can take here, white's doing okay. But Naka probably, well, maybe didn't see that from afar. You know, it's blitz chess, so okay, he just blitzes out b4, gets rid of any of that queen takes on a3 stuff, prepares to challenge the c-file, but now Alireza goes queen g6. He slides across, sets up this battery and actually makes it impossible for Naka to challenge this file, because now you can play the brilliant tactical shot, pause if you want to look for it, common idea. So the move here is knight takes on g3. Now you open up this attack on the unprotected bishop, or it's only protected by one piece. You don't have time to take here, or you lose your queen with check. So after pawn recaptures, then you take here, black's won a pawn. So you can't challenge the c-file. So that's why Naka goes rook e to d1. Now we had knight g5 from Alireza, and again it's all about these light squares here. And here, under pressure, Hikaru makes a mistake. So he should play something like bishop to c5, after the rook slides across, then he can take here, queen recaptures. Now white's still a bit worse here, striving for equality, again for the reasons that this knight has a number of jumps, the light squares are under fire, this h-pawn could be running soon as well, so there's pressure in the position, it's uncomfortable. So Naka doesn't play this bishop c5 stuff. He plays f4, very direct move, puts the question to the knight, but Alireza responds excellently. So he chops these bishops, weakens the light squares, and now the queen recaptures, but this isn't best. Rook takes was technically best, but Hikaru's just desperate to swap these queens here, but now he's running into this knight f3 check move, and here he makes a terrible blunder. So you have to actually go king to f2 here, and allow this rook to hit c2 with check. Now this is really bad for white already. This rook's of course supported by the queen from afar. You can't do this one, or we're taking here, supported by the knight, picking up your queen. And say you take here with the king, well now we're actually mating with queen h5 check. g4 is forced, this is their mate. Beautiful checkmate using the pawn. So none of that stuff is working. After rook to c2, you'd have to actually give up the queen, and this position should just be lost. So that's why Naka didn't go king to f2. He went king g2, but this is also lost. Now rook c2 check was played, but there was an even more powerful move here of knight e1 check. You're going to win the queen, of course, so this one is forced, and then you pick up the queen like this. Beautiful tactic. Peter Svidler spotted that one instantly, and they were surprised Alireza didn't spot it, but in fairness to him, he saw that rook c2 was winning, he played it, and after this one took here, queen recaptures, now the knight was taken. Again, the queen had to give itself up, there was all sorts of mating ideas. Well, this position is still winning for black after rook to c8. The queen is just too powerful in this position, so rook e1 was played. Now the queen took on h2, this rook challenged the file, and you could go rook to c4 here. Now if white takes, we create the dangerous passer. Alireza instead goes rook c2, not as precise, but still winning. He has some work to do here, but the problem is this king is just so exposed. So even though he loses this a pawn, now he gets his kingside pawns rolling, and he's going after that white monarch. So bishop to d4 played, king f7, rook e2 hits the queen. We had a check here, king f2, and now pawn b5 is a great move. You clamp on these pawns here, make it difficult for Naka to get those ones going. So rook d2 played, and now pawn g5. This is the key thematic thing. The queen needs to attack that king, deliver checks, get the pieces uncoordinated, so you use the pawns to start breaking open the position. King g1 played. Now king g6, the king comes marching in, bishop c5, queen f3, and now I'm going to play through some of these moves quite quickly here because the players are both very low on time, as you can see. So there's a whole bunch of shuffling goes on now. We get these pawns exchanged, and now this is where Alireza starts shuffling round. So he does hit d3 here and has the opportunity to take on a3 already. But true to his style, he loves to limit the opponent's counterplay, especially in Blitz. I've really noticed this. So he first goes queen e4, doesn't let the king march in, then rook f6 check and all this stuff. Now the king drops back, and then king h5. So he just takes the time out to stop any of Naka's play. Now king g3, so we get a whole load more shuffling here, pieces moving around, gaining time on the clock. And then we reach the position in a moment where the queen's back on d3. Bishop c5, and Alireza mops up this pawn. You really couldn't defend that one. So rook d2 was played, pressures this pawn here, but now queen b3 defends, king g3, queen c4. We'll see in a moment that Alireza actually abandons the pawn, so this is the moment. But Naka can't take that one, otherwise you check here, and you're forcing the king to one of these light squares. Say it comes here, well whatever you do, we check from h1. If it goes here, check from h1, and the rook is dropping at the end of the line in all of those variations. So the pawn is immune, the rook dropped back, queen e1 check, rook blocks, king h5, king g2, and now king g4. Look at the march of that king, the writing on the wall for Naka now. So rook a2 played, queen g3 check, king h1, and now mate is unavoidable after the excellent king to h3 move. So you're threatening mate here, so the rook can't leave this rank, but you're also threatening mate here by checking from e1. This is the problem, you can't cover both things. And say you go e4, this is the computer's top move, just to stave it off for a move or two. Well then we check, bishop blocks, we check here, rook blocks, this is mate. You know, however you want to do it, you just cannot avoid checkmate in this position here. So Nakamura resigns, massive win for Alireza. Now there's one more round still being played as I make this. I'll cover another video in the morning when I don't sound so tired. I'm quite tired right now. But I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll get you back with more chess tomorrow. Do subscribe to the channel if you never want to miss that one. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.